Welcome to Beyond the Coverage. I'm Chris Horner, and today's episode of the second rest day of the 25 Giro d'Italia. Well, we got to start discussing UAE team members because they have 4 in the top 10 of the general classification, and it's the Mexican rider Del Toro that's in the hot seat right now wearing pink. After yesterday's Strade Bianche stage, Del Toro shined brightly when he threw in the attack with 51 kilometers ago when we watched the favorites crash going into the left turn as Lucas Hamilton went down. We see Lucas Hamilton take Primoz Roglic, Brandon McNulty, Tom Pidcock, and Ayuso went down just on the right side, just underneath the tree there where he got tied up and held up there. We look at the front, Del Toro's going up the road throwing an attack. Later, we know he threw it in that attack because in his interview, he said the white jersey that he saw behind him that was actually Egan Bernal, he thought it was the white jersey of Ayuso, his team leader for UAE Team Emirates. So when we see those 5 riders go up the road with Wout van Aert sitting on and then catching the next 2 from Alpecin de Koenig, making 7 up front, Del Toro at that moment gets a bit of a free ride as Ineos have to start riding the front. But when we come into the finish, we see that Del Toro has great legs. He lights everybody up with the exception of Wout van Aert from Visma, the bike that holds onto the wheel. Wout van Aert takes the stage. Del Toro ends up second, but has the race leader's pink jersey with 4 UAE Team Emirates sitting first and second on the general classification with Ayuso. Then we start looking back and we see it's Brandon McNulty and we see it's Adam Yates sitting 8th and 9th on the GC. We look at 10th, it's Primoz Roglic. Okay, if you watch the butterfly effect, then you know in detail that I covered Primoz Roglic going down at 51 kilometers ago. Later at 45, he gets a flat and he has to start chasing. He has problems left and right with different riders he's riding with. Castora didn't wait up for him after he flatted and continued on his march. Tom Pidcock came back. Derek G was caught up with Primoz Roglic, but Tom Pidcock was being aggressive. So it was difficult for Pellizzari and Roglic to make up time on the front groups there of being led by Ayuso's group and of course Del Toro with Ineos, Egan Bernal, who had teammates pulling on the front. So at this moment, when we're coming into the rest day and we're getting ready for the individual time trial stage tomorrow of 28 kilometers, it's a difficult task right now where Primoz Roglic is at because this next week of racing here at the Giro, there's no back-to-back mountain stages. When I look at this next week, really you got to go all the way into stage 16. That gives us the first solid, 100% solid mountain stage of the 25 Giro d'Italia. And then we got to go all the way into stage 19 and 20 to have the first 2 real back-to-back mountain stages for Primoz Roglic. Why do I bring that up? Well, when you're pure favorite to win the Giro d'Italia in 2025, like Primoz Roglic was starting stage 1, at this moment, when you're sitting 10th on the general classification at 2 minutes and 25 seconds, he has to find stages to make up time. Okay, tomorrow stage 10, the individual time trial is one stage that Primoz Roglic can make up. But when it's pancake flat, how much time can Primoz Roglic make up on Del Toro, Ayuso, Brandon McNulty, and even Adam Yates if he's not time trialing fantastic, which he didn't go so well on stage 2 individual time trial. There's only so much time you lose on a flat 28-kilometer time trial. So Del Toro should still be wearing the pink leader's jersey at the end of stage 10 tomorrow. And UAE Team Emirates should still have 4 riders in the top 10 of the general classification of the Giro d'Italia. But will Primoz Roglic have a chance of bumping up over Adam Yates and bumping up over Brandon McNulty? Well, he only has to make up about 25, 26 seconds, and he can move up at least in front of 2 UAE Team Emirates riders. But that's not going to help him much when we start going into stages 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15, because those are all stages where UAE Team Emirates with multiple numbers, 4 in the top 10 as I already explained, could have possibilities of putting pressure on Primoz Roglic. So now the next thing you have to start asking yourself when you look at this next week of racing, how can Primoz Roglic make up some time in these next stages outside of the individual time trial? Well, first of all, we start looking at the sprint stage of 12, and we know that stage is taken away because the sprinters should take over the control in the front of the peloton, which means that UAE Team Emirates could have a day off, and it means Primoz Roglic cannot find places to make time. We start looking at one of the other stages, 14. This might be an ideal stage where Lidl Trek, Visma Lease bike, because Wout van Aert just got done winning, right? So Wout van Aert's got some form coming again. So this might be a stage where Visma Lease bike, Lidl Trek, along with Alpecin de Koenig, might decide to control this stage. So again, it's a stage taken away from Primoz Roglic, and a stage that UAE team members might be able to rest some if the sprinter teams really want to control those stages. We back it up a little bit. We start looking at 11 and 13, and along with 15 if we go forward. These are stages where UAE team members can be attacking Primoz Roglic. They can get near the finish of the stage, halfway and thereafter, and with having 4 riders in the top 10, they can start attacking. Brandon McNulty can go up the road. Adam Yates can go up the road. So if both those riders lost 30 seconds to Primoz Roglic after the individual time trial of tomorrow's stage 10, they can go up the road on those stages, and they might have some more help in the break to start pulling and putting pressure on Bora Hansgrohe's Primoz Roglic. So even though Primoz Roglic doesn't have the race leader's pink jersey at this moment, Bora Hansgrohe might still have to do some pulling on the front. So now we have to start dissecting the top 10 of the general classification and see what will happen if on those lumpy and bumpy stages that are going to come in the second half and finish lumpy and bumpy that are dangerous to Primoz Roglic, where Adam Yates, Brandon McNulty, and Ayuso could possibly go up the road. If they go up the road, they could easily have a teammate with them. It's not difficult to see that Jay Vine, who's climbing spectacular but crashed on stage 1 of the Giro, it's not difficult to see that Jay Vine could go up the road and be pulling a Brandon McNulty or Adam Yates up the first 2 or 3 bumps, and then of course just drill it as hard as he possibly can and come into the last lumpy and bumpy sections of those stages and then light it up so that Brandon McNulty, Adam Yates, or Ayuso get a better possibility of going up the road, and Primoz Roglic, Bora Hansgrohe teammates can't possibly bring them back. So with UAE team members having multiple options, the biggest thing they have to do is be patient, wait for the race to evolve. If a break is going up early on those stages, when we're talking 11, 13, and 15, well, that doesn't mean that the GC battle's over. The breakaway can go up the road, and once we come in the second half of that stage, we can see those attacks start happening on Primoz Roglic. So what does a Slovenian have to do to get through this next week of the Giro d'Italia week 2? Well, after stage 10, hopefully he's going to gain some time back on the UAE 4 riders up there. And if that's the case, then on these next stages, when we're talking 11, 13, and 15, if he is being attacked by UAE team members, he has to start looking for some help. Where's the help going to come from? Well, it's not going to come from Del Toro and Ayuso if it's Adam Yates or Brandon McNulty going up the road. So he has to look at the other guys in the top 10. Tibieri, Bahrain Victorious, is an ideal rider to look at, assuming that Caruso didn't go up the road, because they have Caruso sitting in the top 15 too. So Damiano Caruso could go up the road for Bahrain Victorious, and then all of a sudden you lose Antonio Tibieri back there as a team ally to help with Bora Hansgrohe, because Bora Hansgrohe do not have much strength, not in the mountains. So when we're talking stages 11, 13, and 15, Primoz Roglic might not have any teammates. Danny Martinez might not have come good. Jan Tratnik might not have come good. Pellizzari will be good, but that's only one teammate, so it's not an ideal stages when we're talking 11, 13, and 15 that Pellizzari can pull back a group of 5 or 10 going up the road with one Brandon McNulty or Adam Yates. I don't think we'll see Ayuso up there, but Brandon McNulty and Adam Yates, you can be sure that those 2 riders from UAE team members will be aggressive on those stages of 11, 13, and 15 when we're getting near the finish of the stage. So if Primoz Roglic cannot have the teammates around him, he's got to look for some help. Bahrain Victorious, possibly. As I said, they have 2 riders, though, in the top 15, so we look at Caruso, he might be in there. So the next rider to look at, Carapaz, could be a rider for sure to look at, because Carapaz from EF Education doesn't have a strong team either, but he could have 1 or 2 guys left in the race where he can help Bora Hansgrohe pull and do damage control to the UAE train that's going up the front. Visma Lease bike, we see that Simon Yates that's still in front of Primoz Roglic, so Visma Lease bike could be a team that's an ally to Bora Hansgrohe, but Visma Lease bike might have some other rider going up the road in that break too. They might decide to play for the stage rather than rely on Simon Yates' form to win the Giro d'Italia in 2025, and they might be willing to lose some time for Simon Yates up there to a UAE Team Emirates rider of Brandon McNulty or Adam Yates. So Primoz Roglic has to be very careful. Clearly, you cannot let Ayuso and clearly you cannot let Del Toro go up the road, which I don't even believe they'll be trying. They'll probably be keeping an eye on Primoz Roglic. But when the other riders of Adam Yates and Brandon McNulty are attacking, Primoz Roglic has to make sure that he keeps at least one of the other teams like Carapaz EF Education, Simon Yates from Visma Bike, and certainly Bahrain Victorious will work, assuming that they don't have a rider up in that break that's called Damiano Caruso. Then you know Bahrain Victorious will surely help protect the top 3 on the general classification that Tibieri's sitting in at this moment. After the individual time trial, he might not be in that position, but at this moment he's sitting top 3, and certainly we know from last year's Giro d'Italia in 2024, Bahrain Victorious will pull on the front if there's any chance that they're going to lose a spot on the general classification. So UAE team members have to know that Bahrain Victorious is going to be a team that's going to help Bora Hansgrohe. Okay, we start going into stage 16, the mountain stage. The second time that Primoz Roglic, I believe, has an opportunity of taking big time back on the GC favorites. We have question marks around Del Toro in a Grand Tour. This is the time that he's starting his second Grand Tour in his career, his first Giro d'Italia, so no one exactly knows what kind of fitness Del Toro will have. Professionally, looking at Del Toro, we know that he goes good throughout most of the season. The Mexican rider at 21 years of age, during his Neo-Pro career, he was incredibly solid. I never recall a rider of his ability coming on the scene that I talked about so much throughout the Butterfly Effect and Beyond the Coverage as I have with Del Toro. So the ability that the Mexican rider has to perform throughout the whole season is magnificent. Can he do it through a 3-week race while wearing the race leader's pink jersey? There's some more drama and some more energy sucked out of you when you're wearing the pink jersey. The drama comes from the fans and the stress, the doing the interviews, shaking hands, taking pictures, everyone asking for your time, the interviewers coming to you before the bus has even stopped moving its wheels and pulled up to the start line of each of the Giro stages. The press will be out there waiting to talk to Del Toro, and certainly I got to believe Mexico in general press should be swarming the Italian race here at the Giro d'Italia, immediately having the Mexican rider wearing the pink jersey. So he's going to have a lot of drama involved that way. The extra stress that will have put on him from that amount of pressure is big. Now when he gets into the race, he has to be focused 100%. He will not have the ability, like when you're riding for Tadej Pogacar, to just go back to the team car and relax when you're getting bottles for everyone. He won't have the ability to pull over and have a nature break at just any moment that he wants, knowing that no one's going to light up the race if Del Toro pulled over and did a nature break on the side of the road. He has to be careful and he has to be at the front of the peloton at all moments of stages when we start going into these last 2 weeks of the Giro d'Italia. Otherwise, if he's out of place, teams will start going to the front and drilling it just for that reason, especially if we're in crucial moments. So remember, it does make a difference on a rider mentally if you can drop back off the front of the peloton and go, I'm going to go get some bottles. I'm going to relax here. I'm going to talk to the director sportif. We always see the riders talking to the director sportif on the right side when they're taking a little calm break and they're relaxed. They're having the bottles. They're stuffing the bottles down their back. They're not stressed at that moment because they're not worried about what's happening at the front of the peloton. They know they'll get back up there. They'll hand their bottles. They're done. But now Del Toro has to get to the front. He has to stay at the front. He has to be focused 100% if he wants to try to win the 25 Giro d'Italia. So the pressure for the Mexican rider, is going to be immense throughout the next 2 weeks. That is the pressure that I'm not sure that any of us know exactly right now if Del Toro can handle that kind of pressure going into the Grand Tour, where we know Primoz Roglic is always calm, is always relaxed, and can handle the pressure because he's a multi-time Grand Tour winner here at the Giro and, of course, at the Vuelta a España. So the Slovenian is used to that pressure. The big thing about the Slovenian, stages 16, stages 19 and 20 are the only 3 mountain stages for him. And of course, he doesn't have the teammates backing him up like he had with Visma Bike, where he can go into those last final climbs on each of those 3 stages, set the pace so difficult that everyone's blowing up off his wheel, then midway or 2/3 of the way up the climb, light everyone up. He has to hope that other teams are setting an aggressive tempo at the beginning of the last and final climb of each one of those stages, and they have to drop everyone off for him, and then he has to go to work, and he has to have the kind of form that we've seen the Slovenian, when he's winning Grand Tours, have. And at this moment, we have not seen that form. quite possibly from Primož Roglic. The reason why we haven't seen it is because he knows the third week of the Giro in 2025 is the crucial time when he has to be at his best form. Quite possibly we haven't seen it because he wants to arrive at that third week, but let me not forget that he is doing the 25 Tour de France and has to come into that race with the top form. So I got to believe Primož Roglic has earmarked the third week here at the 25 Giro d'Italia so that he can come into the 25 Tour de France and battle against none other than the best rider in the world called Tadej Pogačar, along with Jonas Vingegaard and Remco Evenepoel. So at this moment, everything we've seen out of the Slovenian has been good form and solid form, but not his best. And certainly when we go back into stage 9, we don't know where his form is after the crash. We only know that at stage 9, when you really dissect that race, Ineos for pulling at the front, Brandon Rivera and our Insman are the only two riders pulling at that front group of 7 that turned into 5, that turned into 2 riders that Wout van Aert won. So with only 2 riders up there pulling, Primož Roglic is not gaining time on that group. He is not gaining time on the Ayuso group that was about 15 to 20 riders strong. And when you really dissect that group, Bahrain Victorious was pulling on the front with Alfonso. Pello Bilbao jumped in and joined the work for Bahrain Victorious with Tibieri in that group. And then Lidl-Trek spent time pulling on the front with Patrick Conrad. Vasek went across to that front group up there with Egan Bernal and bridged that gap. So you know what I'm trying to explain is that if Vasek can make that gap, if Primož Roglic could not pull it back with help from his teammate Pellizzari, with help from Derek G, with help from Jakob Fuglsang, with help from Tom Pidcock, he was still not capable of pulling back a group that had Bahrain Victorious pulling on the front with Lidl-Trek, Patrick Conrad, and the front group, if we keep it simple, there's 2 guys pulling from Ineos up there, at least until 20K to go before Del Toro lit stuff up. So when you look at it, it tells us that Primož Roglic's form is certainly not the best we've ever seen because he wasn't capable of bridging the gap to guys pulling in groups that were not the best riders on first page of the European peloton. So when it's all said and done, when we go forward into tomorrow's stage 10 individual time trial, sure, Primož Roglic has to bring back time, but he also has to bring his form up to 100% if he wants to win the 25 Giro d'Italia. Del Toro has to stay calm like a bomb, especially from the outside pressures of cycling put on him here at the Giro d'Italia. Ayuso has to hope that his knee that he hit in the crash with 51 kilometers to go is holding well together, and we even have to question his form because he got dropped on the last 700 meters of yesterday's stage 9 from multiple riders in his group. So what kind of condition is Ayuso's knee in? Of course, Brandon McNulty, the third rider for UAE Team Emirates, he went down in that crash. What kind of condition is he in? And Adam Yates, what kind of condition does Adam Yates have? Again, Adam Yates was not spectacular throughout this first 9 stages of the Giro. So there's question marks all over. What is going to happen later, I cannot tell you. But all I know is that Primož Roglic, in tomorrow's stage 10 individual time trial, has to do the ride of his life and start chipping away some time because with only stage 16, 19 and 20 as mountain stages left in the Giro d'Italia and no real exceptionally strong team, when we're talking Bora Hansgrohe with the exception of Pellizzari, Primož Roglic has to start shining and his best form needs to come on soon because we're narrowing the last 3 weeks here of the Giro d'Italia after the next few stages. Stage 16, Primož Roglic's got to be on top form. Like and subscribe. I'll see you guys for the next edition of the Butterfly Effect for Stage 10, the individual time trial of the 25 Giro d'Italia real soon.